Hello and welcome to In the Weeds. We're recording live from the Pickeyweedz Esoteric Occult Boutique, located just south of Clark Summit, Pennsylvania, in beautiful South Abington Township. Pickeyweedz is the largest and most diverse boutique of its kind in northeast Pennsylvania, with an increasingly wide variety of items for many traditions.
In addition to items for sale, Pickeyweedz hosts a wide variety of classes, events, and community-driven gatherings throughout the year. Pickeyweedz is located at 105 Layton Road, South Abington Township, PA. Open Wednesday through Sunday, 12 p.m. to 8 p.m. More information can be found at www.pickeyweedz.com. That's Pickeyweedz.com, or on our social media channels on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. In the Weeds is the official podcast for Pickeyweedz, where we strive to bring the community together with topics of interest, guest speakers, and informative discussions to benefit the entire community.
If you'd like to be a guest speaker, either live or remote call-in, please visit www.pickeyweedz.com. Scroll down to the bottom of the page, find In the Weeds podcast guest application, click it, copy and paste the text into an email with your contact information, and send it to us at pickeyweedz@gmail.com.
Now let's get in the weeds.
Hi guys, welcome back to Season 2, Episode 4. Today we are here with Morgan Daimler. We are excited. Yeah. Hi Morgan, how are you this morning?
Hi, I'm good. I'm excited to be here.
Well, thank you for entertaining us at this weird early hour of the morning, but
dark 30.
for you guys who don't know, Morgan is a very prolific author, a very academic author, which thrills us to death. She has written several books, just a few. A She, Raven Goddess, Going Deeper with the Morgan, for those of you who are Morgan fans here. Lu, the Many-Skilled God. She even writes on Norse gods and goddesses. Freya, Meeting the Norse Goddess of Magic. And you've written a few about the Dagda and other things. It's amazing. The books are great. They're put out by your publisher, who is Pagan Portals, correct?
Moon Books. Yes, Pagan Portals is a series that they do.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. So I guess what we want to do when we start off here is tell us a little bit about yourself, Morgan. A little bit of personal background. Get personal.
No pressure.
Yeah, no pressure at all. So, yeah, I live in the Northeast USA. I was born in Maine originally, so grew up there. It's this interesting place to grow up. My dad was in the Navy, though, so we did move around a bit. And I grew up in the Irish American diaspora, which is sort of a community that's formed around people who are first and second generation immigrants from Ireland. And I think that's really what started my interest with Irish mythology and fairies, more particularly, sort of growing up with a degree of that belief around. And I also, when I was very young, I had experiences of my own, and that offered me some sort of structure to kind of understand things.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then as I got a little bit older, I got into witchcraft when I was 11. I don't know if that actually counts as a little bit older, but
I feel that. Yeah.
And Tay was about that age, I think, too.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. That was right around when Scott Cunningham's book, Wicca for the Solitary Practitioner, came out.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, I'm really dating myself right now when I'm saying this.
Oh,
but,
no, not at
girl,
all.
Please. I'm a baby from 66. You're fine.
Awesome. Good for you. So you got to experience all the real, when witchcraft was first really coming to the U.S.
Oh, yeah.
That stuff. That's awesome.
The very romantic period of it, yeah.
That is such a nice way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one way.
Yeah.
So you...
I was going to say, I came in that kind of second wave in the 90s, late 80s and 90s. So
the resurgence around like what? God, I don't even know if it was Charmed or The Craft or any of those during that period.
I mean, The Craft was in the 90s. Wasn't
Was it in the 90s? Yeah.
yeah. Practical Magic, The Craft.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All that good classic stuff.
That's funny.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, we're watching TV the other night, and there was a commercial on. They're actually starting to market to us about it was Country Crock. It was a dang margarine commercial, and they're marketing. Well, no, that's Brian's mom. She's the witch. Yeah. make your meal something, I don't know, supernatural, I don't know, but we were just looking at it. We looked at each other with our mouths hung up and went, okay.
Hey, maybe we have a market share now.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's really funny. I'll have to keep my eye out for that. I love it.
And so you did what we tell people always, and you kind of did it naturally, lean towards your ancestors. If you want kind of a more powerful experience spiritually, lean into your ancestry. You actually did that.
Yeah. I mean, I think anyone can connect with anything that's speaking to them, for sure. But, for me, it was sort of the structure that I grew up with. And it definitely gave me a context for the things I was experiencing and just helped me really understand, some of what was going on. And
oh, yeah.
I was really lucky because my family, we weren't raised in any particular religion.
Excellent.
And so, yeah, my family, when I would talk about seeing fairies and wanting to leave them things on the windowsill and all this other stuff that I used to do when I was really little, they didn't discourage me. They weren't like, no, that's silly, that's nonsense,
I
don't know that they believed it the way I did, but they definitely encouraged it, which I really appreciate looking back.
That's excellent. Yeah, that's kind of the way we raised ours. It's like, if it's something that you're into, we kind of want to nurture that. We also want you to see everything. So we made sure that we introduced her to all different faiths and stuff like that so that we weren't coloring her experience, making her our mini-me. That was the huge thing, is that we recognize the individual, and I think that's amazing when parents do that. So
I've definitely tried to do that with my own kids. I mean, they know what I do and they see what I do, but I've never, told them like, this is your only option. You have to do what I do.
That's fantastic. So you've covered a lot of the questions already.
We had this whole list. I'm like, okay, well, those are those 5.
She's like, boom, just right out the gate.
Sorry.
You're used to doing this, aren't you? No, and I wanted to know, and I've told people you're more academic. I want them to understand what that is and why it's so important. So when you were writing about, Irish deities, things of that nature, where are you drawing your source work from, your inspiration from?
Sure. So I always try to write about something that I feel like I have some sort of understanding of and connection to. So like I wouldn't just write about something totally random that I didn't have like a strong interest in myself. But my approach when I write is to sort of combine the personal side of things with a lot of research. And I try to go to primary sources. I translate Old and Middle Irish.
Oh, that's excellent.
It makes life more interesting, for sure.
Yes.
So I usually start by going to the mythology that we have in writing, which dates back 1,000 years, 1,200 years, and sort of start with that to get a feel for, who was this deity as far back as we have records of them.
Right.
And then I sort of work forward from there.
Because there's a lot of conflicting information out there of deities that get associated with other deities that really, didn't have anything to do with one another. I guess I want to ask, which one's your favorite pet peeve in that venue? Which one do you find yourself correcting the most?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, if we're talking about fairies, that would be a lot of things.
Oh, yeah.
Same.
I feel bad. Yeah, yeah. With the Irish mythology and sort of the Irish end of things, I think the biggest thing that I end up trying to help people understand is that there really wasn't ever a Celtic pantheon.
Right.
You know, like a lot of books lump the different Celtic language cultures together, and there's 6 of them today, and historically there were more. And it kind of gets presented like this is all one cohesive thing, when it's actually sort of multiple different related cultures.
Exactly.
You know, so, you know, Irish deities like the Morgan or Vaga or Lugh were sort of their own thing.
Right.
You know, and I'll see a lot of people talking about like Cernunnos, who is Scottish, not found in Ireland, but thinking that he must be Irish because they just assume that all these deities belonged everywhere.
Right.
You know, so that's definitely the thing I think I end up talking about the most with people, just to sort of clarify.
And it's really confusing too for a newcomer because there's so many of these, I don't know, shit books.
Yeah, they just slapped it together. Let's just grab a bunch of deities from this one continent, and they all go together, like hand in hand.
That's like the first thing you read, and it gets ingrained, and it's really hard to unlearn bad habits.
Like
it really is, yeah.
Like the Celtic tree oracle, I think that is still a thorn in my side. But yeah.
Yeah, we also have, you know, the whole the Celtic tree calendar, all of that.
Oh, yeah.
Celtic zodiac, you know.
Battle of the Trees bullshit.
And you're in such trouble as a new person because it's so pretty and so appealing and seems so natural, you know, and it's like, oh, God.
And they make the decks look pretty and the books look good. And I'm like, don't, just because it's got a shiny cover with their depiction of what they think a fae looks like.
Yeah, right. And they're so cute.
Yeah.
That's how they get you.
It is. It really is. And then there's, you know, you tell people, you know, where to find the truth, and you say something like, you know, if they're looking for their Welsh or you say the Mabinogi, and they look at you like you've got 9 heads. I'm like, those are literally the tails. What do you mean? You know, and
that's the place to start.
Oh, exactly. And it's so much easier, I guess, when the covers are pretty and the colors are flashy and they seem really accessible, but it's really doing the whole culture a disservice. Yeah,
and you know, I said at the start, you know, sort of I'm a child of 90s witchcraft in a lot of ways, and unfortunately, that was such a terrible era.
Yes.
Oh yeah,
for information in pagan books.
Oh yeah.
You know, it's a lot of stuff that people were just making up or, you know, being creative with, which is fine if you label it that way. Yeah. You know, like I don't have an issue if a book is like, listen, this is all my own thoughts and opinions.
Exactly.
But it all kind of got presented like this is factual.
Yes.
And then that causes a whole mess and misinformation. And then it just perpetuates itself because that's what people are looking at when they move forward.
Right.
You know,
and that stems right into, look, you're appropriating culture.
Yeah.
And you're doing so to make a buck. Too. Yeah. And
a lot of, oh, sorry.
No, it's fine. I was just going to say, I was just bitching. I was just going to say it kills me. What's that?
I was just going to say, a lot of what I have in my book, Raven Goddess, is talking about sort of the truth versus misinformation about the Morgan that's out there, just to sort of help people understand like what is actually found in Irish mythology, what is in her folklore versus sort of the stuff you're going to find online.
Right.
Can you give us some examples of things that are like misconceptions that a lot of people think about and what the actual lore is? Like, what's the biggest thing they screw up?
I mean, with the Morgan, probably the biggest thing, which I've been seeing a lot of the last few years, is this idea that she's like a sex goddess.
Yeah, right.
It's a strange idea if you know her stories and her mythology, but I see a lot of people perpetuating it, and I've seen people talk about, like, oh, she would, you know, reach out to warriors and kind of offer her love, and if they accepted her, she would make them victorious, and if they rejected her, Yeah, it's become like this whole modern, almost like an urban legend sort of thing.
Do you think that mistranslation is from the Toyne?
You know, I think some of it is people really misunderstanding the Boone's daughter incident. Yeah, from the book, because that's what they tend to point to. But when you look at, you know, her whole mythology and everything, she's married to the Dagda. We know that. Mm-hmm. And there's exactly 2 stories in all the mythology where there's anything remotely sexual that happens. And one is in the Kahmoy with her husband, you know. Mm-hmm. And then in the Boone's daughter incident in the Ulster cycle, where she comes to Helen in disguise. Yeah. And, you know, as this beautiful princess, and is like, hey, you know, if you'll abandon what you're doing here, if you'll stop defending Ulster, then I will marry you because I'm in love with you, whatever. And a lot of people just take that little part of it and then run with it. But the whole rest of that incident, it's pretty clear she's just trying to mess with him.
Yeah. She's just being a typical trickster. It's tricks. It's sorcery.
Yeah. She's trying to help Queen Maeve and get him out of the way.
Yes. Oh, my God.
Yeah, and it's pretty clear in a lot of the other stories with her and Helen that they did not have like a really friendly relationship.
Yeah, no, not at all. Like when the chariot incident on the road.
Yeah. The Turnbull Regama is my favorite myth of all of them. And for people who are familiar with it, go read it because it's hilarious.
There's so much value in those myths too, and people miss so much just by reading a shiny book when the tales themselves are just amazing. They're amazing stories that have lasted the test of time.
Yes, they have.
Yeah,
and so much of it is allegory, and I think they try to take it too intimately personal.
Yeah,
and
definitely too literally.
Yeah. They really do. I mean, and you see that a lot in modern day religion too. They've taken allegories and twisted it, and they use it for their political machinations. But I think that's just people being people. But I don't know how to get around that and make them see the underlying messages of it. But I think you're doing pretty good work with that with your books.
I'm trying to, and I'm trying to, because I also do some translation work. That's all self-published, but I'm trying to get new translations out because a lot of what we have that's kind of widely available is from 100, 120 years ago. And then you're getting sort of the biases of those translators.
Right.
You know? Like I like to tell people I learned Old and Middle Irish purely out of spite.
I like that. That's a good way to put it.
It's true though. There's one particular translator named Whitley Stokes, and when I was first kind of researching the Morrigan, I was reading his translation of the Kahmoy Torah, and I was kind of noticing like this doesn't make sense, like because he has a dual language edition. So I'm looking at the Irish,
that's Bella,
and then I'm looking at this much longer English, and I'm like, something's not right here.
Yeah. It doesn't. A lot of times it doesn't translate. It just doesn't.
Yeah, well, and come to find out that some of the Victorian translators, like Whitley Stokes, he just add in his own stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And you have no way to know if you don't know the original language that he was doing that. And some of it does change the meanings. You know, like one of the famous examples I give people from that story is there's a part when the Morgan is going to meet the Dagda, and Stokes' translation says, you know, the woman here was the Morrigan, a Lamia. And Lamia is sort of a Greek term for like a monstrous.
Isn't that like Lilith Lamia? You know, are they conflating there?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Lamia was sort of a term in classical myth, and like Greek and Roman myth, for like a dangerous, evil sort of woman.
Yes.
Basically. And the thing is, the original Irish text does not say that. It doesn't use that word at all. So if you're looking just at his translation, you're like, oh, you know, people used to believe that she was a Lamia.
Yeah.
People believed that she was, you know, this dangerous, evil spirit of the night or whatever.
They did the same thing to Lilith. in the translations when they're coming over. And then if you look at the portion of the Christian text when it was translated from the Hebrew into the Greek, thou shalt not suffer a witch, it was actually the word poisoner, but they didn't have a word for that.
Yeah.
And so they used witch.
Yeah. And that does get tricky with translation sometimes, because you don't have good direct equivalent. And you kind of have to make decisions. But some of the other translators, the older ones, I don't agree with what they decided.
Right. Well, you can tell they were tainted in their opinion too. And then you can see that a lot of them, might have been uncomfortable with the subject matter. I mean, we have to thank the Christian scribes for a lot of it because we wouldn't have it without them. But you can see the slant. You can see their leanings in their writing.
Well, and, I'm going to keep whining about Stokes. I really can't say that.
It's okay.
Another thing he did in the film like Pro was he edited out this entire passage, which is an amazing passage where Dagda meets this Sumerian princess and ends up, we'll just say, having a tryst with her, to be radio correct here. And it's a really great passage. It's fascinating. There's a lot of great information about the Dagda in it, in particular. And Stokes didn't translate it, and he has a little note in his edition of the translation that basically says, "This is not appropriate for my audience."
Wow!
Oh, wow!
Really?
Who are you?
Yeah.
Oh my God! And
It talks about genitals, and he just didn't want to do that.
let's leave our opinions out of it and just print what it is.
Yeah, it does such a disservice.
It's terrible. It really is terrible. Yeah. But that happens a lot more than people realize. I mean, it really does.
It really does.
For political reasons, for religious reasons,
Yep. For Victorian reasons.
Yeah. Look, mine sounds better. I think mine sounds better. I think I should print that. Oh, I love people, but there are people everywhere. They're always fallible humans. Oh my goodness.
You work pretty closely with John and Laura at Irish Pagan School too, don't you?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I've been friends with John and Laura for I think about 10 years now.
They're doing such amazing stuff. It's great.
Yeah, it was so good to see. It was so refreshing.
We are huge fans.
Yeah.
It is, and it's so wonderful to see people from within the culture really getting out there and speaking up, because that can be one of the problems, is that there's all these other voices,
Yes.
kind of talking over.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, John and Laura, what they're doing is really important, I think.
Oh yeah. So I wanted to ask you a question about practice and pagan practice and what they count as druidic practice these days. If you could eradicate one major misconception from modern practice within that kind of venue, what would it be?
Oh, so many options.
You don't have to stop with one, baby. Let it go.
I mean, I have a couple personal pet peeves in that area, but I think probably the biggest thing that I would want to address is this idea that the Druids, we don't know anything about them. They didn't write anything down, and so people will just sort of make up whatever they want and be like, "Well, it's fine. I can call this Druidism because we don't really know anyway."
Right? No, please. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's so much more complicated than that, and we do have a lot more information, I think, than a lot of people realize. We know more about who they were and what they did. So we can't just be like, well, I'm going to make up whatever I want and call it that. It's fine.
I don't know why people can't look at the archaeology, the anthropology, and take their cues from there. For the most part, when you don't have writing, but I think it's modern squeamishness, and they don't have the stomach to look and to see it and understand. Yeah. It's a different time.
I definitely think that's a big part of it. And people definitely like to ignore the things that we just discussed with all that translation stuff that they're not comfortable with. I also think that a lot of people just don't know how to approach researching things.
Oh, yeah. We've Googled everything to our untimely demise. We really.
What are some of your recommendations for people to actually do the work?
I mean, for learning how to research, that's a whole big topic.
And why not?
I think it starts with some of the stuff we've already actually been talking about here, that, you kind of have to consider, like, what was the bias of the person writing this down?
Right.
Is this someone who is in the culture they're writing about, or is it someone outside of that culture?
Exactly.
And with stuff like Irish language stuff, for example, is this someone who speaks Irish or not? Because that all can make a difference in what they're passing on and what they're saying. And you do have to kind of understand that a lot of authors have a particular agenda, whether it's intentional or not.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I think there's I don't think you can get around bias a lot of times. You'll see it in their manner of speaking, even when, like you said, they're completely unaware of it. And I don't think they're aware of how much damage it actually does.
Yeah, a lot of times. Yeah, I try to be honest about the particular biases that I have. Like, for example, there's a whole thing with Irish mythology, Irish studies, where there's sort of two schools of thought. One is called nativism, which is where you believe that the material we have in the myths, in the stories, the oldest written material, actually does reflect Irish pagan belief. That these were monks who were Christian, but it was the culture they lived in, it was the culture they grew up in, and they were trying to some degree to record what was actually there. And then you have the anti-nativist, which basically says we know nothing. We have nothing. Everything that we have in writing is influenced by foreign thoughts and materials and reflects, effectively like foreign agendas.
Right.
In 5th century Ireland.
Like we're talking about the Greeks and their writings, in their opinion, was it Pliny and
Pliny the Elder. And I think you have to remember that the most of our history was written by the victors. We have to go back to things like talking to the actual inhabitants of the area and asking them about folk practices from their grandparents. Yeah. And seeing what's written down from them or what they remember, because so much of this was oral tradition.
Yeah. And that's exactly why I often encourage people. I always say start with the mythology just because I have a lot of love for mythology myself. But I also encourage people, go to things like the Irish Pagan schools. Go to Mythical Ireland with Anthony Murphy, who does amazing work, particularly with the different archaeological sites. There's a thing on Facebook called Circle Stories that preserves some of the more modern folklore and beliefs. There's Duhas IE, which is a website run by Dublin University that is effectively sharing material that was recorded about 100 years ago in Ireland, various folk beliefs. Go to those sources. Go to the sources in the culture. I'm using Ireland as an example, but pick a culture, any of them.
Right. Yeah, because you can find it in most of them.
Yeah.
There's a few cultures we've had some struggles with where they've got the information under lock and key and they're keeping it from the people because, I hate to say this, and I'm not calling anybody out, but Catholicism in those countries is really heavy still. Yeah. And they're handling them with a very heavy hand. But for the most part, that's not the case.
Talking about Taino?
Well, I'm talking about Colombia. Yeah. Yeah, there's
a lot with indigenous cultures in the Americas where they do not share things with outsiders, precisely because a lot of times outsiders come in, take the surface stuff, and then monetize it.
Oh my God, yes.
They're not even sharing like the genuine beliefs, but then that's what the perception becomes.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's very understandable why they're so reluctant to be open.
It is. It really is. Especially, and we laughingly at times call it white girl magic, but there's nothing funny about it. It's still appropriation, and it's still,
I think white girl magic's funny.
I think that's. But I'm saying it's abusive to the culture. So can't be serious with this guy, for God's sake.
But and in all seriousness, that just leads back into a lot of what we've already been talking about, which is, how do you find the good sources? How do you understand, like, what is just the internet white girl magic nonsense? And what is the genuine? Because I think a lot of people are truly seeking, and they're coming from a good place in what they're looking for. They just don't know how to tell the difference.
Oh, yeah.
I know.
Absolutely.
I do.
Absolutely.
I don't think anybody wants to be misled.
No.
I think it just happens because there's heinous people out here making a buck off of it, and they know exactly what they're doing.
So you share our frustration with the publishing industry and a lot of it. Yeah.
I can't say how much we appreciate what you're doing.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I realize, I am a published author, so I am part of the problem.
No, you're part of the. I disagree. We think you're part of the solution.
Yeah, absolutely.
To the published authors, because you're doing the work.
Yep.
You're not just cobbling it together for a buck.
I do try. And, speaking of pet peeves, one of the things that frustrates me with a lot of the books that are out there, and I'm not, picking on anyone in particular, it's just a general commentary, and this has always been the case with pagan and witchcraft books, is nobody cites their sources.
Right. I want that bibliography, dang it. I do.
Right. And even if they have bibliography in the text, they're not clear on, like, well, I'm getting this from this source.
I love that.
So, one thing I try to do with all of my nonfiction books is be very clear on where everything is coming from.
And we've always told people that's the best way to learn how to research, at least small scale, right?
Yeah.
And look in the bibliography and go get those books that were cited and read those too. And so on and so on.
Absolutely.
The first thing I do whenever I get a book is go right to the bibliography.
That's true.
Yeah. I don't even look at the table of contents. I don't know where it's coming from.
That's funny.
Oh. Yeah, well, because that gives me a good idea. Like, I've seen a few now that are, like, very thick, heavy books with, like, 7 books in their bibliography.
You're like, I bet this is mostly your opinion.
I'm a little suspicious.
Aw.
Whereas your Pagan Portals books are like a good quarter of the back of the book is the bibliography.
That's funny.
Yeah,
I love that.
Try.
So I got a question. Who's your favorite author?
Oh, I have so many. He's bibliophile and book. I think some of the ones that I particularly tend to look for Dahi Hogan.
Dahi, oh yeah.
Yeah, he's a great resource for Irish material. I'm actually looking at my bookshelf while we're talking now.
Your audio is kind of going in and out a little bit, just to let you know.
Oh, sorry. I'll stop moving around. I get up to look at books and I mess everything up.
But she said Dahi Hogan, guys, and he's amazing.
Yeah, he's got a YouTube channel too, right?
Yeah, I think doesn't he have some stuff on YouTube?
Or somebody put him on YouTube, maybe.
I think some of his stuff has been put up on YouTube. Yeah, and then you have like Danaher. I'm trying to remember what his first name is, but he's written a lot about more modern folk practices in Ireland. So he's a great resource.
What was the name again?
His last name is Danaher, and I'm trying to find one of his books. I cannot for the life of me remember his first name, which is sad because I do really like his work. Oh, there we go, Kevin Danaher.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah, he writes a lot about the more like the customs and folk beliefs, modern practices, that kind of thing.
So I was following one for Welsh for a while. God, I'm going to butcher it. It's Welsh. Gwilym.
Oh yes.
Yeah, I thought he was. I thought he was kind of great. Yeah.
Yeah, Dylan Morris Bard. And I'm not saying that correctly because my Welsh is terrible.
Mine too. And I was like, I'm going to struggle with this so badly, and I probably butchered it, and I'm probably going to get hate mail. But
yeah, no, for Welsh stuff, he is definitely the go-to.
I fell onto him, listening to his Taliesin series, and it was amazing. I was just like, oh my God, he brings it to life. He really does, and so I would recommend that to anybody.
He's brilliant, and he knows his stuff inside and out.
Oh yeah,
and Mara Starling.
Mara,
I love Mara.
Yeah,
David.
Mara is amazing. TikTok just got booked. There's a book on Welsh fairies actually coming out soon. I am so excited because it is amazing.
And you got a new one coming out soon, don't you?
I do. Sadly, I always have a new one coming out.
No, that's great. We're glad to see it. What's the new one?
It's called Fairy, The Other World by Many Names.
Awesome.
Oh, lovely.
And, yeah, I wrote it because I felt like that's one of the areas of a lot of confusion for people. The other world, fairy, elfland, it's a lot of names in different cultures, but it's one of those things that a lot of people are interested in and want to know about and don't know where to start or where to find resources.
There's so much misinformation.
Yeah,
too.
there really is.
Yeah.
So I wanted to offer sort of a solid basis for people. I talk about the beliefs in Ireland, Scotland, Wales, a little bit of France unintentionally. And then I also do talk about the Christian influence and how that has kind of reshaped our understanding of it.
Oh, yeah.
Can you go into that a little bit? What's happened there?
Sure. So just a fairly quick example. When you look at the oldest stories about this world, wherever we're talking, again, I'm going to keep using Ireland as an example because I'm just really familiar with that. But even Wales, like any of it, the idea was that this was a world that is very similar to the human world. That, there's violence there sometimes, that there's, again, trysting. I'm just going to stick with that word. I jokingly refer to it as the 3 Fs, fighting, feasting, and trysting. So you can substitute that final one. But that's kind of how it was understood. It was this place where, it was amazing and magical, but it could also be very dangerous. Yeah. And then when the Christian influence comes in, particularly, in the later medieval period, really, and we start to get like the French romances with fairy, it clearly starts to take on a lot of the understanding that people had for purgatory at the time. So it's this place that's peaceful. There's not a lot of violence. It's not like heaven. It's not like hell.
Oh,
but
goodness.
It's also like not what it used to be understood as. There's no more of the 3 Fs going on.
That's not fun. I don't want to go there.
Yeah. Have you ever had a personal encounter with the she or fae that you'd care to share? Or?
I have. Let me try to think of a good one to share. So I have what in Ireland and Scotland is something called the second sight.
Right.
Which is just a way of saying like I can perceive things that maybe other people can't sometimes. And I was in Ireland in 2016 in Roscommon, I should say, at Cruachan, which is one of the big archaeological sites. And I had gone to Lunagat, which is the Morgan's Cave, the Cave of Cats.
Oh.
Wow.
But it's also called the Cruachan, the fairy mound, fairy hill of Cruachan. And we had gone into the cave. I was with a group of people, and we were sort of in the dark, kind of connecting to the energy of the place, which was an amazing experience. And I had this moment where I kind of saw the back area opening up and kind of into that world, which was definitely enjoying some feasting. It looked like a really good time.
Like a feast hall?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh,
and
interesting.
It's hard to put it into words. Like it loses a lot when I try to explain it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
At the time it happened, it was a very intense experience. And it's seeing into a place that is, it's like our world, if our world was amped up and everything was more, you know?
Yeah, I get that.
So I realize saying that it does not do it justice, but
No, we totally get that.
Yeah.
We've had a few experiences similar, but
Yes.
nowhere as exotic as the Morgan's Cave.
No.
One day, maybe.
One day. We'll get there, damn it, I swear.
anytime you're relaying like a spiritual experience or a visionary experience or anything like that, as soon as you start talking about it, it just sounds so trite, I guess.
Right.
No, I get
words
it.
can't really do it
Yeah.
justice.
Right.
Yeah, I
Right.
get that.
It just loses a lot when you try to explain it.
Yeah, I had a similar experience too. It was a couple, but
Yeah.
right. We're part of a tradition. It's not associated with any particular pantheon, but it's more of like a familial tradition. But we do a paganing after a year and a day, and on the night after that, I had a weird in-between vision dream of a dining hall, but it was all stone. It's not like a longhouse or anything. It was stone tables, stone walls, and just a bunch of old people that I don't recognize, but they knew who I was. And that was about it. But
that sounds like an amazing experience.
yeah, it was interesting.
The lady with the beehive hairdo.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just that last part is like my introvert nightmare.
Everybody looking at me.
Yes,
Don't
why
look
are
at me.
you? I'm just here wandering
Everybody
around.
knows you, and you don't know them.
I hate that. And that happens to me in real life on the daily. I'm like, oh my God,
Yeah,
what
she
is
can't-
their name?
She can't drive at night because
No, I'm sighted.
people are standing full form in front of her.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
so you know what it's like then.
I've almost wrecked a few times. Yeah.
You be passenger princess. I'll try.
Hell,
After to try to explain to the police that that's why you had the accident.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You were drunk, right? You're high. We're taking you to have you tested. We're 302 in you right now.
Nobody wants that.
You need a jacket and some soft walls, lady. Oh my God. Oh no.
It's so funny that our culture is the way it is.
It
you know,
is.
because in places where these beliefs are still really alive, you could say stuff like, you know, I was out walking and I ran into one of the one of the good kids, and this happened, and people, they might be skeptical, but they wouldn't outright disbelieve it.
No.
You know what I mean?
No. And it's like every third person has a story in those cultures.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's kind of just this common everyday occurrence for them.
Yeah.
And I
But
think,
then here people are like, no.
yeah. Well, we've been brainwashed pretty well, you know, and kind of assimilated into this culture that isn't even a culture, honestly. I hate to say that. That sounds awful, but we really don't have a culture here.
No, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
And there's definitely, you know, everything is supposed to be rational by the wider definition. And, you know, there's not a lot of room left for anything extraordinary.
Right. Anything spiritual's got to go, unless it's, you know, of one particular, you know. Never mind.
And the dominant.
So to see us on TV in a crock, what was it? That crock commercial, country crock.
Yeah.
Yeah, was kind of like mind blowing. I was like, okay,
Her mom's a witch. No, she's the real witch. Like, oh my God, really?
not his mom. That's
Now-
Brian's
Now
mom.
we've gone full commercial.
Yeah,
It's like,
which
oh
is
my God.
bad and good, but you know,
You
interesting.
know, I still remember, because we were talking earlier about charms and practical magic and the craft and all that. But I still remember when Charm came out, as cheesy and Aaron Spelling as it was. Everyone was so excited because it was witches who were the good guys.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
You know, it kind of presented it as a view that we hadn't had in the public. I mean, you had Bewitched, but that was kind of a different thing.
yeah.
You know, she was fighting against the trend in that one. Whereas Charmed, the witches were just the good guys. They were the ones out there protecting everyone. And, you know, it was
Different
just really nice
perspective,
to see it.
Yeah, it was. It's like practical magic, to see
Yeah.
that whole evolution during that episode. Well, the episode is the movie, but of how they're perceived in the beginning to how they really are and how they're perceived and beloved in the end was kind of nice. Yeah.
Oh yeah, when at the end, not the end, and I'm spoiling this because I'm sure if you haven't seen it at this point, maybe not as interested
At least
in it,
twice
but-
a year.
Yes.
Yeah. For the people listening, but the part where she calls the phone tray to come help,
Yes.
and then when Jillian's possessed. But that was such a beautiful moment.
It was.
All these people who, were just normal. I don't want to say normal.
It was normal to us.
Yeah.
Who were not related to the supernatural at all, and they came and helped.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then they were interested.
That really was a
that
poignant
aspect of
moment. Yeah.
community
Yeah.
with it, which
Yeah.
is beautiful.
Yeah.
And I wish this community would remember that a lot more than they do. I think that we're so indoctrinated into the inviting and it's me against you and you're either with us or you're against us. And remember, that's what we're supposed to be doing
Yep.
Yeah.
for each other. For each other.
It's supposed to be a community.
I hope that at some point we can get back to that.
I hope so. And I think it's trending that way. It's just the wheels grind slow and you get frustrated. Just don't give up, guys. Don't give up. We're getting there.
Hanging.
Yeah, hang in there, baby. Remember the cat?
I think a lot of people come into the path too, and they have the easy mode books, and they get the aesthetic thing going on, and that's as deep as they go without ever realizing that there's a lot more to it.
God.
There's so much more that you're selling yourself short if you just go for the surface.
Yes. The
I think the
surface.
people that are meant to go deeper, they'll find their way.
Yes.
Yeah, I believe you're right, and I hate to sound that way because I really, at the end of the day, I'd like to see everybody go that way, but I know that's never going to
just-
happen.
yeah.
It's a pipe dream for me, but yeah, that's my dream. That's my dream.
We get excited when we have, more serious people come in the store. Let me get you some tea. Let me get you a chair. Come on in.
Come on
Let's
in, sit down and
chat."
talk.
It's like a huge thing,
Yeah.
I mean, we're fortunate to have a few people local that'll frequent, and it's great to see them come in, and just everybody gets a free class when they start talking.
Oh yeah, it's lovely, and people crowd around the bar.
I have a friend who owns a store in the area I live in, and I'll spend a lot of time there with her, a couple of days a week, and I see that same thing. Like you get those regular customers that come in that it becomes like a community
It does.
in its own way,
It
Yep,
does.
absolutely. And I think that's part of owning one of these stores. Part of your responsibility is to give that place. You don't have to be the center of it, but you can at least provide, the location where people can meet and talk and be like-minded with each other without judgment.
Yeah, it becomes almost like a community center in a way.
Absolutely. It's really important to us. And we started in a little shoebox of a store. It was basically like you were in a shipping container,
Yeah.
600 square feet, and it was packed to the gills. You couldn't turn around without knocking 3 things off a shelf. And, we moved a year ago, last November, to a 3,000 square foot space. So we actually have an event space and a couple rooms, and hint, hint, would love to have you out.
Yes.
If you're ever in the area.
I think I'm not too far from you. It's maybe like 3 or 4 hours.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we might be able to work something out. You never know.
That would be awesome. I know you've got a lot of fans in the area.
Oh, you do. Your
And,
books don't stay in the store.
And we
Always good.
they fly out of here. So there's a huge population that's actually really interested in the actual culture and the actual traditions, and not wasting their time reading something that, like you said, is going to be mistranslated or extra stuff put in that they thought would be, romantic.
It makes
That's
you.
actually really, really good to hear, because I worry a lot of times that my books are too dry.
No,
Boring.
No.
I have the golden bow for you if you'd like to see
Yeah,
the
that was
sample.
our required reading for our first coven. Yeah.
That's the
The
good
golden
litmus
bow.
test. If you can make it through this book, then maybe we can talk.
It's really good, though. I hate to say, I hate to sound disrespectful because it's really an excellent piece of work.
It's chock
Yeah.
full of folk magic.
Yeah.
But no, your books are fantastic. They're easy to read. The information is fantastic to get, and we cannot recommend you enough. We've been recommending you since, I think, we first read your first one.
Yeah.
So,
a lot.
absolutely.
Anytime.
So you are doing
Thank
work
you for
that
what
is
you're
very,
doing.
very, very much appreciated. And it's not just us. We've got a lot of folks in the area, too, that, when are you getting more of Morgan's books in?
Yeah, they do. They're excited you're going to be on the podcast. So it's like, they're like, wait, when is she going to? It's awesome.
I'm excited to be here too. This has been a great conversation.
Likewise.
It has been. I really enjoyed it.
And we're really glad you took the time to talk to us.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much to this to talk about. We could probably talk all day.
Oh my
absolutely.
God. I could definitely talk to you all day. Oh my God. It was like meeting a sister. That was kind of awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
But if you want to hang on just a few minutes after the podcast, if you have time.
Yeah, I can do that.
All right. Thank you so much, Morgan. We really, really appreciate you taking the time out, carving it out for us today, and I hope you had fun. We did.
We really, really did. And guys, we're going to have a whole lot more for books in the shop. You've asked, you've begged, you've pleaded. We ordered a bunch. So
I think I ordered every title times 3 of each
3.
title.
So come down and see what we're talking about if you don't know already. A lot of you already do, but come down and see. Come down and see for yourself because she's kind of incredible. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me on. I really enjoyed it.
It was our pleasure.
So we hope you enjoyed this episode of In the Weeds, and we hope you didn't have to pick too much pucker brush off your cloak after visiting with us here. If you liked the episode, please follow, subscribe, and share. And if you're really kind, leave a positive review. Be sure to tune in next week as we publish a new episode weekly. If you're in the area, stop by the store and see us. Thanks so much for listening, and have a great day.